Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
Moms for Liberty East Baton Rouge Parish Chapter is dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend and take back their parental rights at all levels of government. To learn more or to get involved with Moms for Liberty East Baton Rouge, email momsforlibertybatonrouge@gmail.com. That's moms, the number 4, libertybatonrouge@gmail.com. The email address is on the Patriot page of our website, freedomstate.us, and it's in the show notes. We're so pleased to have Edward King Solomon joining us on the State of Freedom today. He's a mathematician who's been digging into election fraud since the steal of the 2020 presidential election, and he has uncovered algorithmic election fraud in the Dominion machines. Before we talk to Edward, let me read the scripture of the day. It's Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. And it says, throughout our history, God has spoken to our ancestors by his prophets in many ways. The revelation he gave them was only a fragment at the time, building one truth upon another. But to us living in these last days, God now speaks to us openly in the language of a son, the appointed heir of everything. For through him, God created the panorama of all things and all time. And we have the benefit of living in a time where the entirety of the scripture is available to us at all times. It's on our phones. And not just that, but the Lord speaks to us directly and openly. We have full access to the Father because of the sacrifice of Jesus. When he gave up his spirit on the cross for our sins, the veil in the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And that removed the barrier between the people and the Spirit of the Lord. We have such incredible access to the teachings, the thoughts, the ways, and even directly now to the heart and instruction of the Lord. So let's use that access wisely. Let's be studying the Word of God and seeking him for wisdom in all things. Let's not neglect or waste these opportunities that so many who came before us didn't have.
Danielle, and it's what you just said, seeking the Lord is never an exercise in futility, because he says, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you, ask and you will be answered. So it's not an exercise in futility. Sustained prayer is rewarded. And we have to remember that. But it takes discipline and it takes daily focus. But you're right. The treasure of the scripture is just incredible. What an extraordinary gift we have as a means by which to grow closer to the Father and to the Son, for that matter. Edward King Solomon is with us today, as you said, Danielle. And I got to tell you, Edward, that's one of the coolest names I think that I have ever seen. I absolutely love your name. I'm going to probably say it periodically throughout the day.
I'm thinking Edward we have King. To have another podcast because
absolutely.
I just got done writing a whole section on the original doctrine of the church, which is about God is in all things and created all things, but also outside that creation. But my journey from, I'm sure you've seen, I have a felony conviction. And I went from somebody who was at war with God, was crazy enough to try to usurp God. I was so far gone a decade ago. And my journey back to the Lord has been unparalleled by most stories I know of.
Wow.
But we'll do that another day.
I'd love to do that story. Edward, do you want to give us the Cliff Notes version?
Cliff Notes version? No, that's for a podcast.
Okay. All right.
That would be taken out of context by mainstream media.
Well,
okay.
they can take I can't even come up with a useful analogy right now, but they can literally take anything out of context. It's remarkable. We were reading before having you on the show a little, of course you look at anything online that's easy to find. We saw this Vice article where, they completely shred you for using hyperbolic language. I'm like, well, I don't know. Have you looked at your candidate?
Right.
Stephen Colbert did a terrible hit piece on me too. They backed off of me. The reason they don't even give me bad coverage anymore is because every time I walk into a courtroom, they dismiss the case. They don't even want me to be talked about anymore because I'm going to be showing you things that are very, as I showed you already 10 minutes ago, too simple to understand It's so simple. If I were to walk into a courtroom with that slide I just showed you on the phone, I would automatically win a court case, and they know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So they don't
which
even
is
give
a
me bad
testament,
coverage.
which is a testament, Edward, to the fact that, for those who traffic in lies, no one is more hated than he who speaks the truth. And you are speaking the truth. Speaking of which, how did you get involved in the election fraud issue to begin with?
Okay, well, I can give you a little bit of cliff notes on that then. So originally, I used to think, I'm not going to explain what the Andrika conjecture is in mathematics, but for the long story short, I thought God had me on a mission to solve the Andrika conjecture. I still think he does. It has to do with the largest possible difference between two prime numbers relative to their size. And I kept saying, God, I've been through a lot. I know I'm going to, actually, I kind of did solve it. I'm trying to extend it further to the goal, but I don't really see how this could be the great mission you wanted me for and why you got me out of prison the way you did. I just don't get it. So I was getting ready to go to the Western Priory Monastery in Vermont on the device of Deacon Shaw, who was my minister at Mariah Shock Correction Facility. Right just about time I was finishing my parole. But at that time, something else happened. It was the 2020 general election. And at that time, I still didn't know yet it was my purpose that I was here for to study this, okay? Now, I'm the kind of kid that went to detention because I used permanent marker on every blackboard in the math wing after school, okay? So there's a reason I'm here. I figured that out. But I still, even on the day of the election, and when I started looking at the initial date in November and December, I still didn't realize that was the cause there because I hadn't really found a smoking gun. I found a lot of very strange patterns that obviously can't happen in fair elections, but I couldn't prove that it was rigged. You know what I mean? And then something happened. We might talk about this at some point. And I discovered something called a manifold, which is, if you take, I don't know if anybody can see me on camera, but if you were to take like a piece of paper and fold it and twist it, that's called a manifold. And these things tend to have equations that are deterministic, and that's very important. And what I saw was when you take all the precincts in a county of a state, so the swing states in particular, and you graph their election day mail-in and total percentages for a candidate, in previous elections, it looks the way it would in a fair election in 3D space. It just looks like a can of spray paint, a random cloud of data points. But what happened in 2020 was they all started falling on these perfectly flat or curved surfaces that had deterministic equations. That's why I'm writing what I'm writing called is about 800 pages long already, but it's called The Manifold Witness: How to Detect and Litigate Algorithmic Election Fraud. Once I saw the manifold, I knew I had seen the design of the enemy. Okay, Sainton is the CEO of the globalists. Okay, so I saw the design of the enemy, and it was a very profound. I actually stopped my stream. I was live streaming it when it happened, and I stopped the stream because I thought I was going to get shot. Okay, but eventually I came back to reality. If they want to kill me, go ahead. It doesn't matter at this point. But it was so frightening when I saw it, because once I saw a deterministic equation telling me a candidate's total percentage of the vote with only 2 of the 3 required variables. Okay, so for instance, if somebody has 25% of the election day vote and 75% of the mail-in vote, their total percentage of the combined vote, the only thing you know is that it's between 25 and 75%. You don't know anything else. You have to know the proportion of mail-in to election day votes to know the total percentage. You need to know 3 things. So when you have a deterministic surface, well, it's saying that I only need 2 variables, the x-axis, the election day percentage, and the y-axis, the mail-in, to tell you the candidate's total percentage on the 3rd axis with a deterministic equation with no proportion of the mail-in to election day votes. That's a problem, and that comes from the certified cast vote records. So when I saw these manifolds, I knew I saw the design of the enemy. And that's when I went out and I just looked up at the sky. I had like a Gandalf moment of Lord of the Rings where he says, stars wield of age, and every age with his life is the universe. Just like I get it. I understand my whole journey up to this moment. You know what I mean? So
That's amazing.
That's what got me up into.
That's such a beautiful moment too.
So,
it's a beautiful moment when you come into understanding of your purpose.
All right. I still remember the main thing I want to talk about is actually state law. Okay. But let's pull up that one image so we can get off of math and algorithms for today. Because to me, the math and algorithms are secondary compared to how the state law itself is written.
Edward, while Danielle's doing that, let me ask you a quick question about this regarding the algorithms. You noticed in the 2020 elections that several precincts throughout the country were reporting exactly the same results at various times throughout the tabulation process, right?
Yes. So at that time, I didn't know what was causing it.
Right. But you're saying that cannot have happened naturally.
Correct. But that doesn't prove election fraud. What proves the election fraud is the manifold thing I just showed.
Okay.
So the reason why you had all these repeating ratios, if you imagine like 1,000 precincts glued to the surface, as they move around this surface, they crash into each other, exchanging ratios. So you have a very unnaturally high collision of discrete integer ratios across the precincts when it's rigged by a manifold. So those repeating ratios weren't the rig; they were a huge artifact of the rig. You understand what I'm saying?
That makes sense. Like it was evidence of the rig.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this picture is beautiful. So I call this the victory slide. In my book that I'm writing, I call it the litmus test. Okay, so you see the bottom says the percentage of all ballots counted. Yeah, just leave it there. So the x-axis is the percentage of all ballots counted in the order in which they were counted in the cast vote record. Now, it doesn't say the time at which people voted. It's important to remember that. This is the time at which their ballots were counted at the central counting center. Okay, now. So here, time is not being measured in seconds or minutes or hours or days. Time is being measured in the number of ballots counted, okay, or the percentage of ballots counted. Now, on the left, we're looking at El Paso County, Colorado. And the red line is what percentage of Trump voters from the cast vote record voted no on Proposition B. And the blue line is what percentage of Biden voters voted no on Proposition B. Now, remember, this is from the cast vote record. Okay, this is very easy to replicate. It can be downloaded by anybody, and they can do it. So notice how there's a 20 to 30% difference between the blue and the red line. Okay, there's a huge gap. And we actually expect that because Proposition B was about raising property taxes. In particular, it was repealing the Gallagher Amendment. So naturally, there's going to be a very large partisan divide between Democrats and Republicans on raising property taxes, which is why we see about a 20 to 30% difference. And any county you go to, except Arapahoe, which is on the right, you will see a 20 to 30% difference between Democrats and Republicans on Proposition B at all moments in time throughout the election, where time is the number of ballots counted. Now look at Arapahoe. First of all, I had to zoom in really hard on the y-axis, so you see it's going only from 40 to 50, where in the other picture it's going from 30 to 70, okay? But when you zoom in, there's no difference between the red and the blue lines anymore. Now, Arapahoe and El Paso, they're both huge counties with hundreds of thousands of ballots cast, and they're neighboring counties. How is it that there's no difference between how Republicans and Democrats voted over time on Proposition B?
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's not possible.
And then it gets worse. Look how when Democrats or Republicans change their feelings on Proposition B, the other party does the exact same thing in perfect parallel throughout the entire election.
It's like there's this harmony suddenly between the Democrats and the Republicans in their view on taxes in Arapahoe County.
And that somehow made it past their highly praised risk-limiting audit process.
Wow.
Now, the beauty about the victory slide is you don't need a math degree to know that that can't happen in a fair election, okay? That's crazy. That's crazy. Because even hypothetically, let's say Democrats and Republicans generally felt the same on Proposition B, they still wouldn't move in perfect parallel. They would at least zigzag in and out of each other or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There would still be some discrepancy.
Yes. So for math nerds, what I'm saying is, and you can see from the picture, the first derivative of the red curve is equal to the first derivative of the blue curve. The change throughout time is equal. Now, on the flip side, nobody with a math degree, even if they were some communists from Yale, Harvard, or Princeton, could ever convince a normal person without a math degree that that could happen in a fair election. That's why I call that the victory slide. That's the first thing I start every presentation with, because that already gets everybody on the same page. Widespread algorithmic election fraud is happening, and it's happening on a statewide level, and it's making it past the state-run touted procedures like risk-limiting audits. That's why I always start with that. And if anybody disagrees, they're free to come on the show and debate me and tell us how that happens in a fair election.
Well, I'd love to challenge some people to come and debate you. First and foremost, our Secretary of State. But before,
They don't even have to debate me, because you don't need a math degree to defend that one. So they can just come tell you how that happens in a fair election.
Yeah, we found out that our Secretary of State is the only arbiter of truth in the state, apparently. But
Is your Secretary of State already threatening county officials ahead of time to certify?
not yet, no.
Not yet, okay.
No.
Did I tell you what happened in Washoe County?
No.
I have a good post for you you're going to love. I don't know how I can give it to you
Can
here,
you
but
maybe put it in the chat? And maybe I can grab
sure.
it from there?
It's my pinned post right on my account, but I'm going to give it to you. And what happened, while I'm getting it for you, what happened is we went to the county commissioners with absolute proof, like things I just showed you. In fact, things are even stronger, because I actually have the equations in the body used to rig the election, not just graphs, okay? So what you'll see in this video, so let me give you the context of what happens before that video. A week before that video, the Washoe County commissioners voted 3-2 in the affirmative not to certify the 2024 primaries of Washoe County, Nevada. It was the math that they rigged the election with was understandable by a fifth grader. It was so atrocious. So a week later, on the same day of the Republican National Convention, they did that on purpose so they wouldn't get any news coverage. The Secretary of State said, we're going to send in the state troopers, arrest you, seize all your assets and property, impeach you, remove you from public office if you don't reconvene and certify this election.
And what state was that in? I'm sorry.
Nevada.
In Nevada.
County.
Got it. Okay.
So in that video, you're going to see County Commissioner Clark say that he's certifying the election under extreme duress, verbatim.
Okay. Here,
he even said that he's being threatened with felony arrest and everything else.
Okay, I will pull it up. You want me to just hit play?
Yeah.
But as a mandatory ministerial function, I have been told that a failure to vote to certify this election can subject me to criminal prosecution and forfeiture of office. As such, my vote today is being made under extreme duress.
Wow.
And, there's more of that in that video. So this to me, this is not even election fraud anymore. I call this election coercion, where the Secretary of State says, I'm sending in state troopers with guns to arrest you if you don't do what I say. Because nothing in Nevada state law says it's a ministerial duty. In fact, there's no state law in any of the 50 states where it says that, okay? There's no court or legal precedent anywhere that I know that says it's a ministerial duty. So what happens, and this is very important because my strategy is to vote against certification, okay? At the low, because that's the only constitutional, legal, and peaceful way to stop this. Every other way I can think of either leads to violence or causes violence or is violent, and I don't want any of those, okay? The long story short is this is not just Nevada. This is the exact same thing, verbatim, where they voted not to and then were forced to. That happened in some county in New Mexico. I forgot the name of it 2 years before that. And now you have Jocelyn Benson, the Michigan Secretary of State, has come out and said in publicly threatening all county officials, word for word, in her interview with The Recount, a far left agency, that we will come for you in her own words, if you don't certify. And then you have threatening letters also coming from the Georgia Secretary of State preemptively against the county commissioners there as well, which was said verbatim in their state election board meeting about a month ago. In fact, I have that all documented in my book I'm writing here. So right now, we're actually getting beyond election fraud, and we're actually going to even worse territory, which is election coercion. Okay. And now we're going to talk about Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, where we're finally getting to the meat of this. Okay. So what is Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution? Like, forget the math. We'll talk about that another day. And my journey to hell and back to heaven, we'll talk about that another day. Okay. Right now, I'm just going to read the 2 paragraphs right out of my book out of it because it says it perfectly here. Okay.
Go for it.
And the chat says Chapter 1, state laws designed to facilitate widespread election fraud. I'm just going to read the first 2 paragraphs. Before we can even begin to discuss illicit intervention and manipulation of the vote totals, the reader must first understand that ballots are not counted within precincts. In fact, no paper ballot filled out by the voter is ever counted by a human being or even at the central counting place. Only the electronic entity, which is the ballot as defined by law, upon the electronic storage device, is ever counted. And as state law says, ballots aren't even counted there. It says they are calculated or computed. The paper ballot starts its life in the hands of the voter and dies at the tabulator. The paper ballot filled out by the voter is never once read or inspected by any human being, not even in a recount or an audit, under state law. I'll stop reading from this. Quite often, academics that I have consulted with agree that the mathematical facts concerning Nevada, Georgia, and Pennsylvania and other states were indeed very suspicious, if not outright indicative of fraud. But they could not believe that the election itself could have been tampered with. When I ask them why, their response is that they cannot envision a mass conspiracy of young teenagers and old grandmothers working the polls as volunteers or at the voting centers, altering and stuffing the ballot counts to conform to a county-wide mathematical manifold. So here's the problem. They don't understand how elections work anymore, and they don't know that. So they have this false conception, Danielle and Chris, that there's people counting ballots in precincts. So they go, I just can't believe the election, even though when you have a math professor looking at the equations that rig the elections and know that it's true. Like, oh, I just can't believe, though, that this could happen. There's got to be another explanation.
Just the cognitive dissonance kind of shuts them down.
It's not cognitive dissonance. It's because they have a false image of how our elections are conducted today that they're not even aware of. It has nothing to do with the math.
Yeah. Wow.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They think that there's a Democrat and Republican Party observer in every precinct hand counting the candidate selections. That's what most people think. And if you don't believe me, go ask random people on the street. I do this every day. I don't even correct them. I just tell me how you think your vote gets counted at the precinct. And they just tell me the same thing, just about every single person.
And they're not counting anything.
No. Mm-mm. They're actually that. In fact, it says in Nevada state law, and the paper ballots and subs, it doesn't say ballots, and the paper and paper tapes are not subject to inspection by anyone, except in the case of a contested election and only then by the order of a judge. And you'll find that provision in most states, okay? And what that provision says is no human being with their eyeballs and hands has ever counted the physical markings on the paper ballot or paper accessory, as they call it in most states, and compare that against the computed vote at central counting. And if they did, they would go to prison. So now here's the question. Article 4, Section 4. And the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. Do you think, now, sure, there's a lot of disagreements about the very specifics of what a republican form of government is, but nobody, no court, no judge, no county board, no secretary of state would be brazen enough to say that free and fair elections are not an immutable tenet of a republican form of government. When there's no independent human verification of the vote, and we have to blindly trust the machines, do you feel like you're guaranteed that you have a republican form of government? And that's how we get rid of the machines. That is how we do it. It doesn't say we should be confident that we have a Republican form. We should be hopeful or optimistic that we have a Republican form of government. We have to be guaranteed we have a Republican form of government.
Yeah. And how do you, and obviously there is no guaranteed Republican form of government if, as you said, we have to blindly trust the machines with no forensic audit, with no verification whatsoever.
And on that point, when people say our elections are safe and secure, how can you know that? When we have like state officials say that, how can you know that when even the law doesn't allow you to inspect the paper trail against the computer count?
It's clear that in these uncertain economic times, we absolutely must protect our wealth from dollar and market volatility. Precious metals are a proven store of value, and many believe that gold and silver are poised to make historic gains in the months and years ahead. That's why I'm so proud to be part of a company that is helping more and more everyday people like you and me do just that. Metal Stacks is a precious metals collectors club where you can buy your metals at the best prices on the market, actual dealer cost. They are beating the prices of the big sites and have no credit card fees and no minimums. Shipping is free for orders over $500. You can also refer people to Metal Stacks for an additional income. If you are just interested in purchasing metals, you can visit metalstacks.com/dwalker, which would be great because I'll get the commission. And if you're interested in learning about the business aspect of Metal Stacks, email me directly at danielle@freedomstate.us. Edward, in Louisiana, we have a law on the books. It's the line in our election law, and our friend Dr. Randy Rust would be able to tell me exactly the address of that line. But it says that ballots must be counted publicly. Is that right, Chris? Is that the line?
Yes, it's Edward. It's Article 11, Section 2 of the Louisiana Constitution that specifically requires ballots to be counted publicly and to be preserved inviolate in the event that there is a challenge to the count. Well, our elections in Louisiana are straight Dominion machines. We don't even have a paper ballot here. So how is that consistent with the Constitution?
Under the guarantee clause, it is not.
It is not.
Because nobody can guarantee you have a Republican form of government.
So what do we do, Edward? How are you winning in the courts? Because the truth is, we don't need more laws in Louisiana. We need the government officials to actually follow the letter of the law, and they're not.
Well, first of all, never won in a court. I get cases dismissed.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. For instance, I'm still waiting for Eric Coomer to sue me from Dominion, but he won't dare. He'll sue everybody else, but he won't sue me because I can actually expose him. Okay. So that being said, let me tell you about the case of Gilbert versus Lombardo, 2022 Nevada, Republican primary. Okay. So Republicans, they use these algorithms too, but they tend to use them in primaries. Okay. There's a lot of reports I get from people. I can't look at every election. I'm only one person. I can't be everywhere. I can't at every time doing everything. But, you get a lot of report. I'm sure you know of plenty of these where some no-name Republican that nobody ever heard of that just moved into town beat the MAGA conservative in the primary, even though he lost on election day and in the early votes. Somehow this no-name Republican overwhelmingly won the mail-in vote.
It happens a lot here.
Yeah.
Yes. I thought only for hypothetically, let's just give mainstream media the benefit of the doubt and Democrats prefer to vote by mail. Well, then why are Republican rhinos also overwhelmingly winning by mail?
Because it's the same.
Same algorithm, same manifold in 3D space. The only difference between these equations is whether it's +1 or -1 or negative or positive slope. That's it. It's the same rig everywhere. And, let's go talk on math for a half second. What if I told you that Trump's early vote and Biden's mail-in vote, you add them together and divide them by all ballots cast in the precinct, the same percentage in all 1,296 precincts in 2 counties on opposite sides of the state of Nevada?
That doesn't seem very likely.
That's what was certified.
That is
on
wild.
The cast vote record. 63.4% of all ballots cast with a standard deviation less than 2%. Excluding precincts with less than 200 votes, okay? You take any precinct with 200 or more votes, which combined make up more than 98% of the ballots cast, okay, all combined. Trump's early vote and Biden's mail-in vote divided by the sum of all four vote totals. Trump early, Trump mail, Biden mail. The election day votes on the equation. It's always 63.4%.
Edward, the beauty of what you're doing and what you've uncovered is that no matter how much these politicians sit on the dais and lie to us, get in front of cameras and lie to us, math doesn't lie.
And here's the beauty of it. So if 63.4% of all ballots cast are either Trump early or Biden mail-in, that means all I have to do is tell you the total ballots cast, multiply it by 63.4%, subtract Trump's early vote, and I will tell you Biden's mail-in vote in every precinct with no knowledge of Trump's mail-in vote or Biden's early vote. All 1,286 precincts in 2 counties on opposite sides of the state of Nevada.
Is this why you think Trump and team are pushing for an early vote? Because the more people that flood the system, and, there's going to be a contingent of us who insist on voting.
I think they're pushing it out of ignorance.
You think they're pushing it out of ignorance, not because it's going to make it harder for the Democrats to choose the final number to divide by?
Look at what I just said. Trump's early vote and the total ballots cast is how they calculated Biden's mail-in vote. So something that happened at the beginning of election month, because we don't have election anymore, Trump's early vote, which happened at the beginning of election month, and the total ballots cast, which can't be known until the end of election month, somehow magically told us Biden's mail-in vote with an R squared or an accuracy of above 99 or 99 point whatever percent. And if you think, some people are like, well, I don't know, maybe are there supposed to be strong correlations between votes like that? No. In any election before 2020, if you have 4 vote totals, election, early, mail-in for 2 candidates, the correlation between them is about 8-8 and 9-2 in a fair election. So yeah, you can get an idea of what that other vote total is, but not going to get perfection. And if you try to predict Trump's mail-in vote from Trump's early vote and the total ballots cast, you actually get a lower R square than you expect in a fair election. 0.79. It's so bad. But for some reason, Trump's early vote can tell me Biden's mail-in vote, but it can't tell me Trump's own mail-in vote. That's very interesting. Okay, so proving algorithmic election fraud is not the problem. So, let me tell you about the case of Gilbert versus Lombardo. Lombardo, who was the rhino that stole his Republican from Gilbert, who won all the straw polls. When we got before Judge Wilson, we had 2 problems. One, the attorney didn't let me on the case because I had a felony conviction, and he said it would torpedo the case. Turned out the case got torpedoed by me not being on the case because the judge said all my evidence was hearsay. Good job on that one. But then the judge said, let's assume for the sake of the argument that Mr. Solomon's math is correct, word for word. You want me to pop the video in for you? It will blow your mind.
Yeah, just send it over.
Wilson, there it is. Unbelievable. I even have the start time for you. Okay. And
so he said, assuming your numbers were correct,
and that indeed an algorithm altered the vote totals over all the precincts. Okay, don't play that yet. I don't know if 1, 10, or 10,000 ballots did or did not change the outcome of the election. And the statute, as I'm reading it, says that is required. And therefore, Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Beatles, your case is dismissed. So what he said was, it matters not, even if I was in the court and he did accept what I said, because I can't prove how much damage was done to the election, that nothing will be done about it. Because the state law says, and in most state laws, you also have to prove that sufficient harm was done to overturn the result of the election. And that made sense for the first 200-300 years of our history, because elections were very easy back then. Either the physical paper that was phony or miscounted did or did not overturn the result of the election.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work in 2024 when everything's being done on computers. Remember that graph we just saw of Arapahoe County? Obviously, that's a rigged election, but can you tell me from that graph what the original state of the election was before they rigged it?
No, there's no way to know.
And we call that now the Wilson precedent, okay? He decriminalized algorithms to rig elections because nobody can ever prove how much damage an algorithm ever did.
Right, because you can't show whether or not the outcome was altered.
Correct.
And there's no, and Edward, in Louisiana, to that point, we have no audit trail. So there's absolutely no way to know. Is that the case as well for the case you're talking about, that state?
In Nevada, technically the paper ballots are there, but in Nevada state law, it says, and the paper ballots and stubs are are subject to inspection by no one, except in the case of a contested election and only by the discretion of the judge. So somehow, without having access to the physical paper, you have to convince the judge that the election was rigged and sufficiently harmed for him to then have the discretion to give you the paper ballots and show that.
This should absolutely be public data. I mean, it's your vote. You deserve to know if it was properly handled.
Well, when we come across that in the case next time, because Beatles learned his lesson over there, I have to be in the court case. And I think our attorney did that to us on purpose. I think he did that from behind the scenes, okay? The next time we come across the Wilson precedent, probably in front of Wilson himself, okay, we're going to say Article 4, Section 4. Judge Wilson, you just made it, let's just say it happened. You just made a determination of fact that an algorithm altered the election. Since we don't know whether it did or did not impact the result of the election, how can you guarantee the people of the state of Nevada they have a Republican form of government?
Yeah.
That's going to be the argument next time.
Precisely, Edward, because he can't guarantee that it did not alter the outcome of the election. He doesn't know one way or the other. So when you're talking about having the people's right to have a secure republic and to exist under a Republican government, the presumption should always be in favor of the people. And if there's algorithmic fraud, that should be enough to be able to take action on it.
Right.
In order to fulfill that fundamental constitutional guarantee.
In other words, the Article 4, Section 4, the burden of the proof is in this situation, the burden of the proof is on the government to show that it did not alter the outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because neither side, neither us nor the defense, we were the prosecution in that case, can show we don't know whether it did or it didn't. Therefore, since it's covering all the precincts in 2 counties on opposite sides of the state, it's the same thing I just told you. It has to be assumed that it did change the outcome of the election unless somebody can show it didn't.
Or why would they be doing it?
Exactly.
What's the purpose? Man. What's the purpose of doing it if you're not going to affect the outcome of an election? One of the things that disturbs me about this, Edward, is the fact that let's say you can't show that this type of algorithmic fraud altered the outcome of an election. The mere fact that it is occurring, the mere fact that there is this electronic manipulation by these bad actors should be enough to take action, should be enough to prompt change and investigation.
Well, that's why nobody was ready to fight Judge Wilson on that when he did that, because nobody could have foreseen such brazen. Well, it's not like we were ready with Article 4, Section 4, okay? First of all, the guarantee clause is usually a very scary thing to bring up in the court. The courts treat that like the redheaded stepchild of the Constitution. That's because there's so many various interpretations of what a Republican form of government is, okay? However, like I said earlier, nobody would disagree that fair elections are a core tenet of that, okay? So I don't actually think that would be a problem to bring up in the courtroom, okay? But we weren't ready with that argument because we weren't ready for him to do that.
Not only that elections are fair broadly, but that each individual who votes has the guarantee that his vote accurately reflects his or her intent.
See, this is the thing. Once you get into equal rights arguments and things like that and whatever, you start opening the door for the defense
of standing.
Yeah, you start opening the door for the enemy in the courtroom to start arguing against you. The beauty of the guarantee clause is that the enemy attorneys have no input. You're asking the judge and the judge only. Can you guarantee to the people of Nevada or whatever state you're in that they have a Republican form of government if you don't know whether or not this did or did not overturn the result of the election?
Yeah.
And I call this the, you ever watch Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
I have not.
Okay. So, Chris, you know when Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, they're in the forest and Gandalf is about to return and they don't know it's Gandalf yet. They think it's Saruman and they go, "Do not let the white wizard speak, else he shall cast a spell on us." That is what I'm telling all these attorneys going into these cases in 2024. Anything you can do directly through the judge without these mouthpieces of Satan talking against us, please do it through the judge. guarantee clause and the guarantee clause only. Do not go into any other legal theories such as equal protection rights or what you were just going to bring up, because that lets the mouthpiece of Satan start talking in the courtroom.
Yeah. And even the mouthpieces of Satan, Edward, if they were to take the stand and you were to ask them, based upon this algorithmic fraud that has been proven here, can you guarantee, as testifying before the court, that this fraud did not affect the outcome of the election? And their answer would have to be no.
And Edward, back to the machines. So is this fraud being found, is this algorithm true across all machines? I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Smartmatic,
Right, so,
it doesn't matter if it's Dominion?
Yeah, no, that doesn't matter at all.
Okay, so that's the question, because it's a great question, Danielle, because our former Secretary of State, Edward, when all of the things were going on in Georgia, when Alex Halderman was exposing, the electronic fraud and doing his reports and so forth, our Secretary of State was arguing that, but we don't have the same type of Dominion machine that they have. And other people have said what may apply to Dominion does not apply to all electronic voting machines. What's your thought on that? Are they all equally vulnerable?
Well, first I want to preface it. So when I showed you those math things, that's absolute proof. Right now we are going into the realm of speculation. And in the courtroom, I strongly advise against speculation. We're on a podcast, so I think I'm free to
just
speculate.
Just asking your opinion,
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right. So remember, to preface that with one more thing, I only have a spreadsheet of vote totals from a cast vote record. I can't tell you who did it, when they did it, where they did it, and why they did it. I can only tell you what they did, like in Colorado. And if I get lucky, like in Nevada, where I get the equations, I can even tell you how they did it, at least mathematically. But as to who, where, why, and when, I can't tell you that from a cast vote record. Okay. Now, what do I think is happening? It doesn't matter what the voting software company is. They're all free to sue me for saying this. Please, please, please sue me. I need to get into a courtroom. Please, I beg you. So they know that. That's why they won't sue me. And whenever I walk into a case, it somehow gets dismissed on some technicality before I get to talk. But anyway, the point is, this is what I think they're doing. I'm just going to tell you what I honestly think is happening based on everything I know. Not know, but have researched. So because this is speculation. What I think they do is that, let's say we have 1,000 ballots for Trump and 1,000 for Biden in a precinct. This is before they rigged it. So it was 1,000 versus 1,000, 50-50, okay? And they'll purposely miscount it so that Biden has 1,500 and Trump has 500, okay? So it's still a total of 2,000 ballots. However, they want the paper trail to match at the end of the election. So now they have to get 500 more ballots for Biden. When those 500 ballots come in for Biden, they actually miscount them for Trump. So Trump goes back up to 1,000. And now you have 2,500 ballots total. Do you understand what I'm saying? That way the numbers match at the end of the election. And so what they do is they're miscounting it at central counting on purpose. And we know that from the Mesa patterns, which shows Trump's percentage increasing throughout the election over time. Okay. So at the beginning, they're miscounting in favor of Biden. And then at the end, they're actually miscounting for Trump. Okay. And what they're doing is when they're miscounting, they have to be broadcasting out to a rogue facility, like a stash house of phantom of fake, not fake ballots, technically legitimate ballots, but on phantom voter registries. And then they're giving those to mules at a precinct level off of those manifolds. That's how they're assigning the precinct to it. And then they're putting them in the unsecured drop boxes. That's what Nevada state law says. About a drop box is a receptacle for mail-in ballots that may or may not be secured. Also said in the Secretary of Procedure Manual. Secretary of State Procedure Manual. And then they used to have a provision where only the voter themselves could turn in their mail-in ballot. They repealed that and said now anybody can harvest as many ballots as they want. And for 24 hours, even in past midnight, can go to unsecured drop boxes and drop them off. So what they're really doing is they're miscounting at central counting, then they're broadcasting the miscount out to a rogue facility, and then they're dropping off the miscounted ballots in favor of the person they're trying to make it win, And then they take those miscounted ballots and they miscount them for the guy they were screwing to begin with. So it all matches at the end of the election. If I had to put a wager on it and God came out of the sky and was going to tell me whether I was right or wrong, I would bet every single thing I have and everything my family has on that wager.
Wow. Edward, when you look back at the algorithm that you uncovered, are you nervous at all? And forgive me if this is an ignorant non-math person question, that the algorithm might be changed this election because you've been vocal, because they know that you know?
Yes, so this happened already in the 2024 primaries in Nevada. Too bad I called them anyway. The thing is, I have several tests, which I don't broadcast or put in publications, that tell me, I'm not going to even say what it is, but it tells me right away whether an election is rigged or not. The long story short is, it knows if the end result of the election, the aggregate percentage of the candidate, was or was not predetermined based on very, very, very particular behaviors, which I'm not going to say. So I already saw that they rigged those elections. I said, well, how did they do it this time? Well, it turns out they did it the exact same way on a manifold. So why didn't I pick that up right away? Well, because now they took some precincts and they sprinkled them in the middle of three-dimensional space as huge outliers. So when I was doing my automated analysis, it couldn't pick it up. It wasn't until I graphed these percentages in 3D space and looked at it with my eyeballs that I could actually see the manifold, and I actually had to go clip like 10 out of or 20 precincts out of the 1,200 precincts. And then I got my manifold. So are they going to use manifolds again? Yes. The problem is they're not going to use flat planes like in Nevada. They might not even use simple curved ones like in Atlanta, Georgia. They're going to probably start using some really crazy called roller coaster quartic manifolds, which are going to be so hard to explain to the public. All I can say is God save America. Okay, I know what they're going to do. So they're still going to use manifolds, but they're going to now make them in a manner where I can no longer easily explain it to the public, even though the general concept is the same. And they're going to put all kinds of crazy outlying precincts. They're going to take like 2-3% of the precincts, and they're going to purposely put them outside the manifold or off the manifold. So me and others who can't even do automated analysis, we're going to have to sit there and literally look in 3 dimensions on a 3D scatter plot how these elections look. It's going to be terrible. It is going to be terrible. But you know what? None of this matters, because my strategy right now is forget the math right now, or at least for the majority of Americans, forget the math. The guarantee clause. And what we need to do is have county commissioners, because notice they're really afraid of people not certifying elections at a local level. We have to get our county commissioners and county board of canvassers, regardless of anything that happens in the election, good or bad, just refuse to certify and say, until there's an independent hand count of the candidate selections to compare against the machine count, I cannot certify this, because I cannot guarantee that we have a Republican form of government, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. So I cannot certify this election. And then if they say, oh, well, we'll let you hand count them, like out of desperation, they really let you do it. Say, no, too late. It had to be hand counted as it was being done with the machine. Remember I said they're going to make the count match at the end. No. You had to let us do it then. Not 5-6 weeks later after you backfill the paper trail. That's it. That's my strategy.
So it's clear that there will be machine manipulation.
Yes, but I don't think that we really, although I'll be pursuing that in the courts, I don't really recommend that the people of America wait around on a hope and a prayer that me or somebody else manages to actually win a case on algorithmic election fraud. The only ones that can save you are yourselves. You have to get the county commissioners, tell them about Article 4, Section 4. We have unobservable elections. Humans are not biologically capable of observing an electric current of ones and zeros in the central computation machine. Doesn't matter how many observers you have of central counting, no human can see ones and zeros going through a circuit board. We have unobservable elections. You cannot certify it. The end. That is the only peaceful, legal, viable and peaceful solution. Peaceful, viable constitution, and feasible. That's
incredible.
The only way to get rid of
It
these
is incredible. And that is certainly consistent with the provision of the Constitution here in Louisiana that we talked about earlier, which guarantees that votes be counted publicly and preserved inviolate. The system that you're talking about right now, this type of manipulation, is absolutely inconsistent with that guarantee in the Louisiana Constitution. And it's certainly inconsistent, and I think it's absolutely brilliant, Article 4 of the federal Constitution, that guarantees that we have a Republican form of government. And how can you guarantee that with the way that our votes are processed and counted right now? It's really, really a powerful argument.
It is. And Edward, before we let you go, how can people follow your work? And if they need to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, if they want to get bored out of their mind by math equations, they can go to Twitch at Goblin Overmind. So I'll just drop that in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Now, I'm not always on that. In fact, I've been on YouTube for as long as I can be on it until they prohibit us from talking about elections again.
They haven't bumped you off yet?
Not yet.
Wow.
They threatened to back in 2020, but then they lifted their restriction on election fraud about a year and a half ago.
Wow. Well,
so
we'll test it out.
While I can use it, I will.
Well, you've given us additional quivers in the arrow. No question about that today.
Did you like that Arapahoe County slide?
It was awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Anybody say their elections are being rigged? They explain this to me.
I mean,
it's the litmus test.
It's extraordinary. Like I said earlier, so all the voters in Arapahoe County, all the Republican Democrats have this harmony together that's not shared.
The bipartisan miracle.
Yeah, right. They get along much better in Arapahoe County.
And everybody agrees to raise their own taxes.
Right.
In perfect harmony.
Yeah,
that sounds American.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today, Edward. We're going to continue to follow you. And
my X account. You can give him my X. That's probably the best thing. I know it is. Yeah. I didn't really use social media much until people said, no, really, you can actually talk on X without being censored. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, so this is my X.
Perfect.
What a novel concept.
I know, right?
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful afternoon, Edward. Thank you so much for your time. And we do want to have you back on to hear about your story, how God picked you up out of the miry clay and transformed you. I'm looking forward to hearing that story.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'll give you the preview from the book on that. So you know what you're walking into. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Fair warning.
By the way, the book is free. When it comes out, it's a downloadable share. I want everybody to know how to prosecute algorithmic election fraud. I'm not charging anybody for it.
Awesome. We'll have you back on to talk about that as well.
You got it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit